Right. I bet you got worried there for a second, thought we were going to stop, but we're going to read just a little bit more. I just had to make 2 separate videos because of my battery dying. So we're going to go ahead and start right here. And come on, Kindle. There we go. All right. So they said Charles Wallace has made the decision that he is going to let the man or the thing into his mind. All right. But Calvin shook his head. He's right, Meg, and we'll be with him no matter what happens. But what's going to happen? Meg cried. Charles Wallace looked up at the man. Okay, he said. Let's go. Now the red eyes and the light above seemed to bore into Charles, and again the pupils of the little boy's eyes contracted. When the final point of black was lost in blue, he turned away from the red eyes, looked at Meg, and smiled sweetly. But the smile was not Charles Wallace's smile. Come on, Meg, eat this delicious food that has been prepared for us, he said. Meg snatched Charles Wallace's plate and threw it on the floor so that the dinner splashed about and the plate broke into fragments. No, she cried, her voice rising shrilly. No, no, no! From the shadows came one of the dark-smocked men and put another plate in front of Charles Wallace, and he began to eat eagerly. What's wrong, Meg? Charles Wallace asked. Why are you being so belligerent and uncooperative? The voice was Charles Wallace's voice, and yet it was different, too, somehow flattened out, almost as the voice might have sounded on the two-dimensional planet. Meg grabbed wildly at Calvin, shrieking, That isn't Charles! Charles is gone! The transparent column. Charles Wallace sat there, tucking away turkey and dressing as though it were the most delicious thing he had ever tasted. He was dressed like Charles Wallace. He looked like Charles Wallace. He had the same sandy brown hair, the same face that had not yet lost its baby roundness. Only the eyes were different, for the black was still swallowed up in blue. But it was far more than this that made Meg feel that Charles Wallace was gone, that the little boy in his place was only a copy of Charles Wallace, a doll. She fought down a sob. Where is he? She demanded of the man with the red eyes. What have you done with him? Where is Charles Wallace? Now, I'm going to stop here for a second. Charles Wallace is physically still there, but mentally, he's very different. Charles Wallace was this kid that was kind of, yelling at the other guy, and now he just seems to just follow all the directions and do exactly what he's told, which makes you wonder, is it really Charles Wallace doing the thinking, or is someone else doing the thinking for him? All right. She fought down a sob. Where is he? She demanded of the man with red eyes. What have you done with him? Where is Charles Wallace? But my dear, you are hysterical, the man thought at her. He's right there before you, well and happy, completely well and happy for the first time in his life. And he is finishing his dinner, which you would also be wise to do. You know it isn't Charles, Meg shouted. You've got him somehow. Hush, Meg. There's no use trying to talk to him, Calvin said, speaking in a low voice into her ear. What we have to do is hold Charles Wallace tight. He's there somewhere underneath, and we mustn't let him take him away from us. Help me hold him, Meg. Don't lose control of yourself. Not now. You've got to help me hold Charles. He took the little boy firmly by one arm. Fighting down hysteria, Meg took Charles's other arm and held it tightly. You're hurting me, Meg, Charles said sharply. Let me go. No, Meg said grimly. We've all been wrong, Charles Wallace's voice, Meg thought, might have been a recording. There was a canned quality to it. He isn't an enemy at all. He's our friend. Nuts, said Calvin rudely. You don't understand, Calvin, Charles Wallace said. Mrs. Whatsit, Mrs. Who, and Mrs. Which have confused us. They're the ones who are really our enemies. We never should have trusted them for a minute. He spoke in his calmest, most reasonable voice, the voice which infuriated the twins. He seemed to be looking directly at Calvin as he spoke, and yet Meg was sure that the bland blue eyes could not see, and that something else, was looking at Calvin through Charles. And that's where we're going to stop for today.